Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
How are you doing?
Victoria.
Good morning, Victoria. I'm Jane Johnston with the Bar Hill Group at Remax Camosun.
And I'm Andrew Blank with LePage.
You got a different background today.
I do, yeah.
I like it.
I decided to go with the photo montage thing like you have. The art wall. It's a little bit better than the spare room office background. Wouldn't you say?
It's eclectic.
It is eclectic, yeah.
There, we can see more.
Thanks. Yeah, you can see more of the art.
Okay, but I like to see your lovely face. Okay, so let's talk about what's happening. We're going to do two things today. Number one, we're going to talk about what's happening with the market. I think we should get up to that fairly quickly, and then we'll talk about working from afar. We had forgotten it was the beginning of the month, right?
Yes. How can you forget? But it's easy to forget when you're head down in the weeds working like nonstop. What day is it? I don't know.
Okay.
So stats, yes.
Stats, here we go. Let's get it going. So I made this lovely PowerPoint. Do you like that?
Fun fact is she made that in like 5 minutes while we were convincing before the show. Let's see how it looks.
Okay, can you see it? Oh, somebody's calling me. Okay.
That was me.
So, welcome to the October 5th review of the Victoria Real Estate Stats with Andrew Blank and Jane Johnston. So what I did was took a series of slides that I like to look at. Can you see these?
I can. It is again the screen. We have to get better at, I think, making some more snapshots of this. But yes, I've gone full screen now. It's not so bad.
Okay, let me figure this out.
It's good. We're good.
Okay. So why can I not do it that way? Can you anyway? Okay.
This is fine.
Okay, so we're a single family Victoria, 522 units sold. Last month
it's up 5.9% over last month.
Yeah, and up 109% since last year. So that's double. Oh my God.
Yeah, we have doubled our sales in September 2020 versus September 2019.
For homes.
For single family homes. And that's interesting because when you look at condos, the stats are much different.
Correct. So condos are only up 26.7% over last year.
Yeah. Okay,
average $1,075,891 last month, up 7.3% over last month, up 18.8%. So there's not necessarily correlation between volume of sales and price. Medians at 875, which I always find interesting. So it's fairly steady compared to last year. At last month, I mean, at minus 0.11%.
So you could say that, I mean, because some people don't understand or get confused by average versus median. And, average includes maybe there were, $5-10 million home sales that bumped the average. But when you look at the actual number of where most of the sales are happening, the median price there is around 875. So that's where the hot spot is around 875. But we have an average that's above $1 million.
Right. So that often means if the median price is lower, that the prices are on the lower end of the $1 million mark, actually, for if you were to go out and look at a house, the median price is more important than the average price. It's also is dependent on the area.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you'll see that move around as you go down the list. Well, sorry, that's for the different types of homes, but you would see that for area as well.
So average price for condos was $502. Median price was $430, which I thought was interesting. So that's gone up 4.4% over last year median price, 12.4% over last year for average price. So, and then in terms of condos themselves, in September 2019, 221 sold compared to 280. So that's good. We were talking about how condos were kind of falling by the wayside. Seems like they're picking up a bit.
I had a call yesterday from some folks. We were chatting condos, and I said to them what I'll say now. I think condos have been lagging behind. I think there's an opportunity in condos right now. Last year there were a couple of hits on condos because people are concerned around jumps in strata fees, and of course I think people got tired of the small spaces. But now with prices having jumped so much and there's such a low inventory in houses, I think we're going to see a bump. A boomerang, like not a boomerang, but it'll spring up because the tension is high.
Yeah, actually, and then just looking at single family homes, 522 units for September 2020 compared to 249 single family homes. So that's incredible.
Now, keep in mind, folks, that is also because this spring we had record low sales amounts. So there is some backlog we've been catching up on, but when we've been looking at this, it looks like we've gone above and beyond. So above and beyond what we would have normally expected in a regular year, but we're still just beyond catching up what is a regular year.
Okay, and overall though, we're lower listings than last year at minus 15.4%. Holy smokes. I would tell people when we're looking at homes and they start looking and they go, oh my goodness, like 8 out of 10 homes have accepted offers. What does that mean? I'm like, well, it means we're at the beginning of the process. That's okay. We're going to get in there quickly. We'll find you a home. So
yeah, it's easy to lose heart and don't, because you keep making, as I said to some clients just the other day, keep making good, reasonable offers, not crazy offers. And the law of averages will work in your favor eventually. There are good homes that do sell at fair price. When you're competing, it's easy for one person to just throw the moon at it, and you'll lose out to them. But there's only so many crazy people out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a quick note: townhomes look like they're up as well, and at 601, they're down from last month, but up from last year. So last year they were at 588 for average, and median price 555, 550, 546 last year. So that to me says it's steady.
Yep.
Okay. I love this graph. Can you see it?
I can see it. It's a hard one to really get for anyone. Yes, and I love this graph too.
Okay, Geeks Unite. So what this is telling me, the most active areas are Victoria, Vic West, Saanich East, and Saanich West and Langford. Saanich East,
there.
Yeah, Saanich East is the largest real estate area in the city. And this is for single family homes, and the most active sort of grouping is around the 800 to $1 million mark.
Yeah, that's a real hot spot.
So for Saanich East, and then for Victoria, so this is Victoria and Vic West, most active area is around the 750 to 849, and then again, just under $1 million.
Yeah.
So where this is handy is if you're looking with a buyer and you're writing an offer on a property, if you are looking at a $2 million property in the Highlands, you're probably going to overpay because there aren't any.
Well, it depends on the property, obviously, but it's going to be a hard one to make a good evaluation on any kind of value. There's not going to be a lot to compare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this graph is if you look on the right side, the Gulf Islands have been very active, and I went to Main Island on.
Can I just be a little bit nitpicky?
Sure.
This isn't a graph.
Oh, sorry. The matrix.
Thank you.
That's fine.
I couldn't help myself.
So I went to Main Island, and quite a lot of properties have been selling. I've been watching that market for a client of mine, and I'm seeing a lot of activity. So This is sort of the first time that I've looked at it in terms of real estate, but quick study shows that the prices are going up there. So it'll be interesting to watch that trend over time. But probably the most interesting thing is that when we got into real estate in 2006, I think the average house price was $399.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And there aren't many homes for sale at that price, unfortunately.
Not anymore.
Yeah, unless you go to Souk.
At $399, can you find a house in Souk for $399? I don't go to Souk anymore, but I would be surprised unless it was a teardown, even in Souk.
Well, there's 25 homes that sold, and I think that they're hitting a specific market in the core there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see that. Okay, so 25 homes, single family homes. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
Some of them are strata, single family homes.
Yes.
Bearland strata and there's one development there that's Bearland strata on leased land. So that was an eye opener. If you want more information on that, let me know.
Yeah, that's a complex one. Yeah, contact Jane directly.
Okay. Average selling prices. What's your impression on this one?
Well, if you look at it from the trend line, it's definitely it was boosting up even from August to September 2019, and then it started to zigzag a bit, but the trend was still up. And we had the drop due to COVID, and then it sort of bumped back up to where the trend was kind of continuing on from there. And then it's bumped beyond that. But it looks like we're kind of moving into a new plateau there. I know that's showing an uptick on single family home prices for September 2020. My prediction would be that we're going to, if you sort of take a curve from those August, September, October numbers, I think we're going to kind of end up maybe plateauing a little bit after this. Based on just looking at that graph only, that's sort of what it tells me. I am no expert at graphs, though. I can tell the difference between a graph and a matrix, though.
Oh, thank you very much, Andrew.
Never mind. Sorry. I should really, because you're going to call me on the next time I say misspeak, which happens more than you do. So,
well, this, to me, we're going to have a seasonal adjustment anyway.
Yeah.
That always happens. So in December, we'll get to the next graph and we'll show you the seasonal adjustments that happen. So I always tell people, if they're looking for a bit of a deal, probably the end of the year is a good time. Anybody, I say, who's listed between now and December probably wants a closing before the Christmas holidays, and they usually get it. So condos, though, look pretty flat to me.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
If we were to look at this over time, it would just be boop.
Yeah. That being said, there is that little bump up, and I do feel like, as I said, the tension in the difference in pricing between condos and single family homes and townhouses, I think that will buoy the condo market more than others.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, total active listings. So because we've had so many sales and we had kind of a lack of listings there in April and May, you're seeing the trend down. And then what you were talking about before, the subsequent bump that followed. To me, the total number of listings is down because we had a lot of sales. So let's just look at the next graph, and this explains list sale ratios. So you can
the bars are listings, the actual number of listings coming on market that month, and the line is the sales that happened that month. And so you can see the relation. The one sort of subtracts from the other almost, and that's what gives us the graph we saw before.
Yeah. So you can see that it's not quite as high in June as it was the previous year, but that's because there were more sales in June and July relative to where the listings were.
It's interesting that sales have been really steady in terms of numbers, like consistent July, August, and September. We certainly have seen twice as many sales in September as we would have expected to see. And if we go back to the graph, well, actually, if we just, go back to the graph, stay at the graph there. If we look at September from 2019, we can see that we've really jumped. But we would expect normally to see these graphs sort of trending down. We're not seeing that, but it's steady. It's not going up.
But cumulatively, when we were discussing the stats last month, they were at the exact same level, -1 or +1 compared to last year. So overall volume of sales was the same to September 1st. So now we've exceeded it, I think, by about 450 sales overall
Right.
this year.
Right.
Okay, last one. Awesome.
I just sort of anecdotally say too, like based on who I'm working with for buyers and upcoming listings, I expect we're going to still see record numbers for October and even November. I do think we're going to still see a lot of sales. I've got buyers who are, expecting and planning to buy in the next month or two.
Yeah.
Quite a few, and same with sellers. So if you have anything to sell, give us a call.
Okay, so working from afar. We have about 15 minutes.
Oh, great. Okay. So have you got something you want to say on this? Because I have a few things as well.
Sure, you go ahead.
Okay. So, I was thinking we could talk a little bit about, and 15 minutes, we're not going to have time to do all this.
Okay.
Some of the myths and misconceptions people coming from outside of Victoria might have about Victoria. What do they kind of expect? What's the difference in, let's say somebody's coming from Ontario and anyway, we'll go into that. There's obviously a lot of taxes that you have to consider if you're coming from out of town and especially out of country. There's foreign buyers tax and speculation tax and so on, depending on what your purpose or use of the property is. So those are things to really be careful of. There's some real minefields there for folks coming from out of town. Interesting how people actually just conduct business differently in different countries. If you buy a home in the UK, apparently the seller can continue taking offers up till the closing date, is my understanding. I may not be speaking. This is my understanding. I don't know. Somebody can chime in if they know this differently. But you don't actually have a firm sale, until the money's changed hands. And then once you do have a firm sale, the buyer will move into that home, and they will not be the kitchen sink and the fixtures and the appliances. You just buy the shell of the house, and people pull all their lights and their door knobs and all that stuff and move it to the next home. That's different than here.
It's called gazumping when you bump somebody off there.
Gazumping. That's a good word.
But so when you move here, your deal is, once you have a pending offer, so you get your financing approval and then you remove your subjects, it's firm. And you can't uniformly change your financing option at the last moment, which I had an American buyer do. And, she did it innocently, because that's what they do in the States. They all sit around the table. The buyers and sellers also never meet one another here.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, the house is clean when people buy it. Like, you're not going to come in and it's not going to be a total mess.
Depends.
And, what?
Depends.
And you could write it into the contract that you want it professionally cleaned. You can also possession, we talked about being on a separate day than completion, and the reason for that is just in case the financing details aren't coordinated between the lawyers. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes that's because there's a daisy chain of sales going on. I once had a realtor freak out because there were like 6 sales in a row, and I'm like, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You just happen to know that there are 6 sales.
If it's a daisy chain, you've got one buyer buying a property, and that seller of that property is buying a different property, and the seller of that other property is buying a different property. And so that first buyer, if they default, if they don't get their financing, if they don't show up at closing day with the money, you've got 5 or 6 cascading effects of no sale, which can be really problematic, obviously. But that very, very, very rarely happens.
Yeah. The other thing you need to worry about here is water and moisture in general. It's a lot different than elsewhere in the country. Our wet season is in the winter, and we often, what they call that? It's like a trough of rain, a river of rain. I call it the Hawaiian punch because we
Mhm.
get a lot of warm rain and like a deluge over.
Yeah, so it's not like a winter where it's a dry, cold winter, and it's not, and it's and our summers are hot, but still we still get some dampness through the spring and into the fall. Um, and so water's a big problem here. We have great water to drink, absolutely, and it seems like no lack of it. But when it comes and it's clean, so that's a great place for water in that sense. And we have beautiful oceans and so forth. But we had a problem with condos back in the 90s and 80s where they were made a little too well. They kept moisture in. They were supposed to keep moisture out, and that worked really well. But if it did let moisture in, and moisture always gets in, it had a hard time getting out. So we're always looking at roof overhangs, quality of, water is our enemy here.
Flashings,
Yeah.
two perimeter drains. So if you buy an old house, you want to get a perimeter drain inspection. Oil tanks are an issue depending on where you live and when the house was built, up to 1970s. Asbestos insulation can be an issue. Vermiculite.
Yes. So speaking of oil, it's always funny to me when people are coming from elsewhere and they say, "Oh, I don't want a house with oil heat." And there's other areas where I guess oil is, I guess, if you're heating your place all the time through the winter and it's a cold winter, you're going to be having a really expensive heating bill. And of course, oil isn't cleanest and so forth. But here it doesn't seem to be an issue. For the locals, there's a lot of oil heat homes, and it's not really an issue. But I've worked with many people coming from out of town, from other provinces, and they say, "No, I don't want a place with oil heat." Have you had that experience?
I do, but what I say to them is, and I think we talked about this last week, was the ventilation system is what's the most expensive part of the system. And there are different programs that allow you to bring in gas if you have oil heat. So don't discount a house just because it has oil. We often have electric baseboard heat too, which in our environment is very efficient. So you just have to realize you're not dealing with the type of heating system you're going to find in Ontario. I remember feeling like when I came here that, oh my God, there's electric baseboard. It's so inefficient, but
Yeah.
it'll allow you to zone heat.
The other thing you'll find here in Victoria that you may not find in Calgary, for example, is single pane windows.
Yeah.
And there are homes that were built in, back in the day, and they have single pane windows. They may not even be stormed, so they're just a single pane. And yeah, your heating bill will be a little bit higher, but they still keep the rain out. And people have made a decision not to update those. And should you? Probably. Do you need to? No.
It's the same thing with 100 versus 200 amp power.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people feel they need 200 amp power, but especially if you have like a gas stove and a gas furnace and other gas appliances, you don't necessarily need even 100 amps. So you'll have space on your panel for your hot tub.
Yeah. Yeah. If you bring in gas, you're going to be much better off for having that 100 amp service. So other things maybe, other things if you're a non-resident seller. That's another thing. If you're selling a home and you're not a resident of Canada, but you own property in Canada, once you've bought this home, we're talking about maybe buying, but you also have to consider your resale. If you're a non-resident seller, the Canadian government's going to be concerned about you running away with what they would consider your ill-gotten gains of the value, the increase in value of the property. So there will be a tax, and there's a withholding tax. They're going to want to hold 25% of the proceeds of the sale while they calculate what you actually owe them. And it needs to be, available. So it can make for some interesting complications in a sale.
Right, and that's not unusual. So often, though, if you are a Canadian resident and then moving out of country, because your taxes can be complicated, you're incentivized to sell before the end of the year, fiscal year. Because
So
if you sell in January, they're going to hold that tax for the whole year till your taxes are submitted the following year.
if you take anything from this video, listen to your realtors, but talk to your accountants and look at what the implications are and make sure you understand all the implications of buying and selling and the costs of buying and selling in Canada. Because we can guide you through the process, but in terms of what the costs are going to be, and those can be, there's a lot of factors there. Definitely talk to the accountant. A good one.
What I find too is, so foreign buyers buying in Canada,
Yep.
30% down.
Okay.
And also if you are buying within Greater Victoria or certain areas around the province, you may be subjected to the foreign buyer tax, which is 20%. And then, so if you buy in Shawnigan Lake, you're actually not subjected to that, or Whistler.
Yeah, there's some of the core areas where you are going to be subject to that, and then there's other areas of BC where they would love to see any kind of investment. So there is that. So things that people may not know about Victoria, coming from elsewhere. This is the capital of British Columbia. Yeah, you came from elsewhere. This is capital of British Columbia. You might assume, and when you look on a map, Victoria isn't a small place when you look at Greater Victoria, but the city of Victoria is actually a small place. It's not a large geographical area, but we're made up of 13 municipalities. And so the Greater Victoria area includes, the whole of the Saanich Peninsula and what we call the West Shore, which is Langford and Colwood, and even Souk and Metchosin in the Highlands. So there's a much greater geographical area to consider, and there's some really wonderful. The thing about Victoria is there's a spot for everyone. If you love yachting and boating, you might want a place up on the peninsula where there's some great marinas and some beautiful forays you can take out to the Gulf Islands and such. If you love sport fishing, you might want to be closer out to the West Shore or Souk, where you've got better access to great fishing. If you like recreation, you might go to the West Shore, Langford. There's a lot going on there. There's some great parks, hiking, trails, lakes. So there's a little bit for everybody. And then, of course, we've got the Gorge Waterway and a lot of active working harbor. We have a lot of waterfront in this city, just because our geography allows for so much land that is on the water.
And I was going to say, so I did a program called VancouverIslandTime.com. So if you want to check that out, that'll allow you to get an interview with somebody who lives in the different areas. And like Andrew said, we have waterfront all over. That's because we have a kind of undulating
landscape.
Shoreline. What?
I'm just trying to help. You're good. Shoreline. Let's go with that.
Yeah. The other thing is it's cooler down by the water.
Yeah.
So just having somebody who understands, I guess, what it's like to live in different areas. So downtown in Fairfield, it's about 5 degrees cooler than it is up by the university.
Yeah. And with James Bay, for example, there's water on sort of 3 sides of James Bay. You've got the Victoria Inner Harbor sort of curves around it. You tend to get a colder offshore wind that comes across James Bay. If you're out in the Highlands or the West Shore up in Langford, you're at a higher elevation, especially let's say up on Bear Mountain. You tend to get more snow.
600 feet.
600 feet. Well, it's not a huge elevation, no, but it makes a difference. And there's every time I'm heading on the highway out to Langford, if it's going to be snowing in Langford and it's raining in Victoria, the dividing line is by Thetis Lake. Speaking of which, the other thing people from out of town might not get about Victoria, somebody coming from Ontario, from Toronto, where they're used to a big commute, and they're used to commuting 40 minutes a day to work, and they come out here and they hear that there's a commute from the West Shore that's maybe 20, 30, well, it's usually about 30 minutes, let's say, can be more in heavy traffic. It's not so bad now that we have an interchange at Mackenzie. But, or let's say it's 40, 50 minutes. How long is it from Souk, would you say, to downtown? 40 minutes. So someone might say, oh, well, that's not a big deal. I'm going to go to Souk because it's a lot cheaper in Souk. And not disparaging Souk at all. It's a great little community. But people who live here, their minds sort of expand or contract based on where they live. And I find people who are used to a 40-minute commute there, they hear from us, no, you don't want to be doing that commute. Once you're doing it, it's too much.
They hear from you because I live out that way.
Yeah. I have talked to many people though that have moved out to Souk and they're like, I don't want to do that commute anymore. It's not great. And it's not like the traffic is holding you up. It's just that I think Victoria is a smaller space. And so it's kind of, you can find property in town with less of a commute.
Well, here's what I find is, quite honestly, people buy on a price continuum.
Yeah.
So they're going to say, I want to spend, let's say now, realistically, $650,000. Well, they're going to find a nice townhome downtown. They're going to move out to Hollywood. They're going to find a home, and they're going to move out to Souk, and they're going to find like a palace.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on lifestyle. And I agree. I think what Souk needs is just a little more infrastructure. They need a hospital out there. They need to be a little more self-sufficient and increase employment out there. And then it will be a case of it being a bedroom community for Victoria. But it's very affordable. It's I used to teach out there. It's a lovely place to live. And it is a bit foggier and cooler in summer than elsewhere in the city, but they have great places like Souk potholes where you can go and swim. And then there's awesome
Sorry?
There's awesome beaches out there.
They're pretty good.
So
But it goes down to recreation. I mean, if you love fishing, if you love surfing even, because you can get out to Jordan River from there, it's a great little community. For value for money, you could also go up over the Malahat and find, or up into Shawnigan Lake. So
that's a very hot area right now. That's a very hot area right now. So I find a lot of people who were looking in the West Shore are now looking in Shawnigan Lake. So, and they feel like they're being invaded, the Shawinigans.
Okay, then. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So that speaks to the same thing I was saying around the condo market maybe being buoyed up a bit. People are either going to choose to make sacrifices in terms of size and space to stay in town, maybe buy something smaller, or they're going to go for a longer commute and go further afield. And I just saw a publication showing, again, all of Vancouver Island is really active right now.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk about next week?
I have no idea. You pick the subject.
I think we should talk about staging your home and getting it ready for sale.
Okay.
Because now is the time to get your home ready for the spring market.
Do all the things you were planning to do when you first moved into the home to make it lovely.
So true. Yeah. What's essential? What do people look for, and where to spend your money, and why it's worth it to stage your home now as opposed to when you are considering a price reduction. And I can tell you, you will save staging compared to reducing the price of your home. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Have a very clean and well-presented saleable product right off the starting gate. And it's way better than having a false start and then trying to make course corrections down the road. It's going to be a lot harder to get people's attention.
Okay, so next Monday is Thanksgiving in Canada.
Oh, right. So
let's do it in 2 weeks.
I agree.
Okay. And you know what? I'll invite a stager. You invite a stager.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. So coming up on October 19th, we're going to be talking about staging your home for sale in the spring, getting ready for the spring market right now. It's the smartest thing you could do. Get those people working on your home while they're not working in construction, and save money by investing a little bit now so you don't have to do a big price reduction later if your house isn't appealing.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So how do we get in touch with you, my main man?
We've got to come up with an overlay for this, but you can reach me at info@andrewplank.com. So it's my name, info@andrewplank.com, or call me at 250-360-6106.
And I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun. You can reach me at briarhillgroup.com or at 250-744-0775. All right.
Cheers.
Have an awesome Thanksgiving. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, and I want to see all your carvings. Live long and prosper. Bye.
Okay. Bye.